Hi, Konstantin.
Hi, Anatoly, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Let's see how many more people we can get today.
Joseph was here, but he disconnected.
Okay, he will join in a second then. All right. Hi, Joseph, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, good. Good to see you.
Good. Hi, Joseph.
Hi.
Let's give people another minute to join, and we will move on. We'll see.
right.
Maybe some people will join in session, right? But just to not have any gaps, right, on the meeting. Do we have any opening questions? Does anybody want to discuss anything?
I wanted to ask about how I can get into a GRC team. Like if I'm working for say IT support, do you think I could get on their good side, help them? Maybe when a future position opens up, they would think about me if I have the right qualifications for it.
Just in general, to become a GRC specialist, this is what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Take the GRC role in the company. You're currently working in IT support, and I think the way for you is to I don't know how big is your organization. How big is your organization?
I didn't catch that.
So you just made it up?
No. I didn't hear what you said.
How big is your organization?
It's a multinational company. It definitely has GRC cells in various places.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing
So,
around 100,000 employees.
So the cleanest path, I would say, would be to tell your supervisor exactly, or your manager, that you're studying GRC and you would like to get a GRC certification. We will find the right one, the entry-level one for you. And see how they react. And overall tell them that you want to shift to GRC mostly, right? Start managing systems from the governance perspective. Keep, establishing governance over systems and processes. And you may not be heard from in the beginning, but if you build this message and it starts circulating across your colleagues, it will naturally happen, actually. So if your manager is engaging enough, or is a kind person, they may want to decide to connect you with higher level people in the company who may be responsible for your reassignment in the future, or with those from GRC departments, so you can start talking with them.
All right. Another question is if you were interviewing a candidate as a junior GRC analyst for your company, right? And say he's coming from a background 2 years IT support. What are some things you want to see on his resume, or some things you want to hear from him that would make him a strong candidate?
Okay, so in order to answer this question, we first need to ask ourselves, what are those GRC related positions, right, in the company? Because as we don't have a full list right now in front of us, I cannot tell you exactly how would I interview a person for this or that particular position. we are, in these sessions, we are reviewing the GRC program as a whole, mainly from the leadership perspective, getting down into particular details, right? So you can be the GRC, let's say there is a position of GRC analyst, a person who is responsible for, let's say, reviewing different compliance standards. I'm making this up, right? Okay, it's not official. We need to look at the job descriptions and everything. But let's say they are responsible for looking at different compliance standards and cross-mapping them in order for the company to understand what needs to be done to be compliant with all of them, right? Or maybe you are coming up, and this is a very real thing. As a GRC analyst, you may be working within the GRC department to develop a common set of controls. A common set of controls that you establish across all your systems, right? That ensures two things: the system's security from one angle and compliance from another, right? And they both play well together. So if I was interviewing a GRC analyst, I would first, knowing that we're developing a common set of controls, I would first try to understand what type of general knowledge they possess across the GRC domain, right? In multiple domains. What is their primary skill or skill set, right? What they are capable of doing the best. And if, assuming that we're developing a common set of controls, I would assign them to a particular subset of common controls. Maybe it would be working with other people or alone on that particular task that actually matches their expertise, right? So if they have expertise, let's say in technology piece, like knowledge of applications, for instance, and they are a GRC analyst, but they know what controls need to be established to protect applications, I will, make them work on those. But at the same time, and this is actually what I will interview them for, to understand, first of all, the general knowledge and then the specialized knowledge within the GRC domain, right? And if we are, let's take another role as an example. Some people are building the common control set. The other people are working, let's say, on implementation of those controls. So they need to possess the skills needed in communication with stakeholders. They should reach out to stakeholders, find allies within those departments, as we discussed previous times, and then somehow ensure the implementation of what needs to be done. So I would interview them more from a people management / marketing / project management perspective, right? To see how well they communicate, and also will ensure that they possess the general knowledge of the GRC. So they know not only how to work with people, but also what outcomes they need to achieve. So it really depends on who I interview for what position.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So today we can simply continue with with the remainder of session 3 that we had last time, because we haven't touched the first technology aspect of technology, the first set of controls or that relate to the technology track of GRC, the IT device management part, and we can quickly review it today. So let me share the slide, and we'll just go from there. Okay, so we quickly looked at the list of policies last time, right? Now it's time to get more technical. And the first technical area that we want to review is the IT department. Our imaginary organization has 80 people, I believe, or even more, because this presentation says that people are issued like 95 laptops. And we need to look at the IT management practices, first of all, right? Because we want to know what GRC principles apply to protection of the devices, how to manage them properly, what we need to keep in mind when establishing governance across the devices. Hi, Shika, thank you for joining.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. So we were talking. We just started discussing the IT device management practices. So you joined right in time, and Joseph asked a couple opening questions about how to hire for GRC roles, what would be the interview questions and everything. And I wanted to say that I need to prepare for that, conversation better.
Okay.
So we can discuss it in more details. We need to, in the future, to review the list of GRC roles or positions that are opening.
Okay.
People name them differently, how you can apply on those, and what you will be asked, and how to prepare for those interviews.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, but Joseph, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
I just want to ask, MDM stands for mobile device management, right?
Yes. So switching back, yeah, go ahead.
Endpoint management, does it fall under GRC, like compliance maybe?
Yes. So the endpoint, let's get into that. So we just started from where we stopped last time because we didn't have time to finish it. The IT device management practices, right? And devices are referred to as endpoints, or we have a few more words to address, to refer to them. You asked what category they fall under. It's devices are the assets in the company, right? Like every other operational asset. And although they fall under different categories like laptops, desktops, smartphones, whatever it could be, IoT devices, it could be anything, like even the equipment used to manufacture something or to process something. It could all be the endpoints, as long as they have some controlling capability. Like if the device has a controller and you can connect to it and you can actually work with it, then what you can do, and this is getting back to your question, Joseph, you can start governing that device, right? So it actually all relates to governance. And then you can start managing risks related to these devices, because risks are plenty. Devices can be hacked, stolen, damaged, whatever. So it relates to risk management, and of course it relates to compliance. So you need to show to your mainly to your customers and your partners that you are managing devices properly, so they will feel safe about their data on your devices, if any. For instance, the government is it's kind of the exaggeration, like probably the most restrictive environments are the government environments, right? But it's a good example. They care so much about their data that they require that when you ever possess or operate government-owned data on the endpoint, it has to be protected with like 100 different controls. In many cases, it's even easier to outsource, those controls to some cloud environment, like Microsoft Azure, for instance. It has a very good government control library, and you can create virtual machines inside Microsoft Azure that will be immediately compliant with the government requirements. And when you remote desktop to them, you can ensure that they're protected at the necessary level. But if you try to protect, the actual laptop in hands of your employee, knowing that the employee is traveling here and there, and they may even visit the sanctioned country or things like that, these controls, the policy enforcement of those devices becomes a nightmare for the IT department. So, but let's review it all slowly. So we're switching from governance. We establish governance across devices, meaning we need to centrally manage them. We implement some risk management practice. We start proactively managing risks on those devices. And this relates to policy. We do it through policy enforcements. And I will talk about those in just a few minutes. And of course, you ensure compliance through the previous two practices, right? It's the third pillar, because you govern the devices and because you ensure that you're continuously managing risks on them. So starting with governance, devices should be centrally managed, and organizations are using systems which are also referred to as MDMs, mobile device management platforms, that actually let you enroll device, and they install the governance profile on the device. And as soon as it's done, the organization can now control everything you do with the device. They can wipe it out remotely if it's stolen, for instance, or if the employee term with the company has ended and the device has to be returned, or if the employee misbehaves and does something that contradicts with company policies, so they can take quick action on the device, right? And for that reason, the central management of the device is necessary. So you can actually own it, and regardless of where it is located, you can enforce whatever policy you want on the device. You can restrict the usage of certain software, you can restrict installation of certain software, or you can, in opposite, enforce installation of a particular application that you want your employees to use. And for all these reasons, you need an MDM. Then, as it comes to risk management, it's all about policy. And MDMs, let me go back to that. MDMs, the most well-known MDMs are Jamf, which is very capable of managing Mac OS devices, MacBooks, iPads, iPhones. Microsoft Intune, that is highly capable of managing Windows-based devices, of course, because it's Microsoft products, right? There is a platform called Fleet MDM that tries to span both worlds, Mac and Windows. If I'm not mistaken, Jamf can also manage Windows devices, but I haven't touched that subject, so we'll need to do an additional research on that. But what I also know is that this separation of Mac OS management specific, Macs and Linux is basically all Unix type devices can be managed through Jamf, for instance, right? And all Windows type devices or Microsoft software type devices can be managed through Intune. And what has started happening because of this separation, we started seeing the aggregator products on the market. Fleet is one thing, but it's more simple. It just tries to span both worlds. So it's like it's a replacement for Jamf and for Intune. It does all the management by itself. But there are products like Zip Security, for instance. And Zip Security is actually an interesting type product. It aggregates the use of Jamf and Intune, and it also connects to your identity provider, and it lets you enforce policies across the whole fleet of your devices. And internally, they manage Macs through Jamf and Windows through Intune, but you have a unified interface or access point to all of them. And from the management perspective, it looks like you're managing all devices from the same system, which in fact it isn't. So do you have any questions about the policy enforcements? We just discussed the general concept. I gave you an overview of what needs to be done by the IT department, what processes they need to establish conceptually from the GRC principles perspective. Maybe it's a high-level overview. I give you the names of a few systems that the company may be using to manage their devices. But what I also want to discuss with you in more details is actually what controls we need to establish and enforce on the devices, right? That are the best practices, first of all. It's the first category of controls. And the second set of controls is what is required for our example, like SOC 2, for instance, what the auditor will be asking about, right? But before I do that, let me know if you have any questions about the endpoint, centralized endpoint management, or software systems involved in endpoint management overall, so I can answer those for you before we dig deeper into the actual controls.
No, I understood it pretty well.
Okay. Chika, how about you? Do you have any questions?
No questions, but I just got here, so I guess I missed that bit, but I'll watch the video. We can continue.
Okay. Yeah, if anything comes to your mind, feel free. I'll stop a couple more times and we'll give you a chance to ask questions, okay?
Thank you.
All right. So, so the IT department, what they are responsible for, let's discuss that. When you operate as a company, and all companies are in what more or less are technology companies these days. So everyone has a computer, and I see a shift in the future into more like iPad and mobile phone type devices, and away from laptops. It was first desktops, now we shifted to laptops. Now I kind of foresee a shift to more compact mobile devices, because there will be so many things you can do with just your voice, and viewing some visuals on whatever media you have in the room or on the go. It could be a TV set or anything. So the actual laptop becomes less and less necessary, especially if you're on a business track, not on a software development track. So I see this shift kind of into management of iPads and iPhones or Android phones or Android tablets going forward. But so far, the company issues laptops. Some companies even have, what they now call the desktop servers, which is basically a desktop computer standing in the office where people, let's say, design some certain they do some scientific work on them, like using AutoCAD or other tools, which require a lot of powerful compute, right? And the IT department is actually responsible for setting all things up, installing operating system, right? Purchasing the devices for the company, selecting the right vendor for device acquisition, then purchasing the devices, then setting up operating systems, enrolling the devices into the device management system, MDM, either Jamf or Intune, or maybe Zip Security, and it can do all that under the hood. And then they also need to come up with a list of allowed applications on each type of the device, and with a list of mandatory applications on each type of the device, right? So this is where the approved application list comes from. So the IT department comes up with a list of software that you can install and use on company-issued devices. For the desktop computers, it could be AutoCAD, Adobe Acrobat, Illustrator, I don't know, whatever they need on the desktop. For laptops, it's usually like Microsoft Office Suite, a password manager, an IDE if you're a software developer, and all other things like Slack client, ChatGPT client, Anthropic application, Claude, right? It could be whatever else you may need, some VPN software, and everything. All that should be governed properly. And all those systems, the MDMs, they actually provide you with the capability to build the allowed applications list and enforced application list. So those applications can be installed over the air automatically onto the devices. And if there are certain restrictions, when a person tries to install the prohibited software or the software that is not in an allowed list, they either have to go back to IT and request an exception, right? Or they will not be able to do it because the MDM does not let them do that. And of course, as we just touched the subject of IT service requests, because if people need something from IT, they need a place to go, right? So the IT has to have their own ticket management system, which is usually called a service desk. And companies install software like ServiceNow, if it's a big company, and configure it extensively. And it's a great product. It's like a Lego, if you will, in the service desk world. You can implement whatever workflows you need there. But of course, it's fading right now because of the AI. Or they use something more simple like Jira, ClickUp, Monday.com, whatever they're using for project management, they can also use as a service management, because it's simply under the hood is just ticket management system, right? But this is also something that the IT has to maintain. What else? But there are also other fundamental controls that need to be established on the device. So we just reviewed that there is a list of approved applications, certain foundational, certain base things like software's operating system setup and stuff. Everything can be automated, right? But then if we take our SOC 2 as an example, there are certain additional controls that need to be established that are also required by a huge number of other frameworks, including ISO 27001 and HIPAA and whatever other compliance standards you can think of. And these are the disk encryption, of course, it's a foundational thing, and it's a common sense will dictate us that the disk encryption has to be turned on from day one and has to be established. But as we look at our GRC program from the SOC 2 perspective, it's one of the SOC 2 controls, so I want to kind of mention it explicitly. And it is usually done through the FileVault on Mac and BitLocker on Windows. Then the other control that needs to be established is the antivirus or anti-malware software. I would prefer both, or a combination of both. Has to be installed and should be active and updated regularly on the device, because it actually directly relates to data protection. The other thing that is less digital, more real world related is a screen lock. The screen lock should be, first of all, turned on. There should be a certain idle time. So when the user walks away from the computer, from the laptop, or even the phone, the screen should automatically lock after a certain period of time. On your phones, you probably have like a 1 minute period for auto lock. You don't even notice that it's locked already. But on laptops, people usually tend to keep them unlocked at all times. But the screen lock is extremely important, because when you are at the airport or in the cafe or in the coffee place, and you need to step back, let's say into the bathroom, knowing that you're in a safe environment, you can leave the equipment there where it stands. You want to make sure, or if you even at the office and you're doing work and you're stepping away for a meeting into the meeting room or anything, and you leave your device open, you want the screen lock to happen automatically after a certain period of time, to at least a little bit protect you from the unwanted eyes, to protect the device from the unwanted eyes, right? Or from the unwanted type of access. So screen lock is mandatory, and also it has to be password protected, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to do it, right? We reviewed 3. And I forgot, and I usually forget, I know that SOC 2 mandates 4 controls on a device. I always remember 3 of them, never all 4. So we'll need to switch to another screen where we can review all 4 of them. Let's do it. So first of all, let's find all the equipment. So in Orbis, we have this many laptops, or some is the iPhone, whatever. So let's look at whatever laptop we have here. Okay. So there should be an enforcement of the use of password manager system. Is one of the controls. It's the 4th control, I believe, but we'll see. Maybe we'll uncover more out of that list of 4 that I mentioned. So disk encryption, antivirus, screen lock, password manager. I still think there is something else, but we'll go through the list. We'll see. The password manager, again, I'm a hands-on specialist. So I need to give you the names of the products that companies use. And some people, like the small companies, let's say they only, if they're only using Macs, they could lean or rely on the Apple Password Manager. If they are only using Windows, I actually have no idea what would be the standard password manager in Windows. I need to find that out. But if the different types of devices are used across the organization, there should be a unified password management solution And people usually use one of two. Maybe you know of the other one, and you can tell me. The one is 1Password. It's like number one and password, all one word. It's a quite good password management system. It has, browser extensions to help you fill in your login information on web forms. It has password sharing capability, so you can send the link to someone. They can open it up, and the credentials will open to them on the web page. They can copy them and actually save them into their own 1Password instance. So it's a quite robust platform. You can manage as many vaults as you need in that platform. And the other platform is LastPass, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's that name. It has a little worse reputation than 1Password because the 1Password has not been hacked yet, or at least nobody knows about that, which is a common case in GRC world, and just in general, companies just don't know that they have been hacked. And but LastPass has the actual incident, well known, people know about that. So so for that reason, most of the companies tend to choose 1Password over LastPass, although both solutions are quite good. I find LastPass a little bit dated, but again, with this shift to voice-only interfaces and less visual, less forms, less less buttons, it does not. It's no longer an issue. All right, so let's go back to, let's look at the hard disk encryption. We spoke about that, FileVault for Macs and BitLocker for Windows. Antivirus and anti-malware software. Yeah, there is no other controls actually here, except the secure media device disposal procedures, but it's a little bit relevant to the other stuff. So we can touch this for a moment, and then yeah, let's actually do that. Let's look at the secure media and device disposal procedures. It's a little bit of a misleading control. I need to fix it. What is meant to say here, or what should be here for the device, from the device management perspective, is that we need to ensure that our ports on the device are properly configured or even locked for use with the flash drives, like removable media stuff, right? Oh, this control is actually about a little bit different thing, but it's great that I remembered about the removable media stuff. So the MDM solution can also allows you to control ports on the device. So if you have a personal laptop, for example, you can insert whatever thing you want in it, and it will accept it, right? But if a company controls your device, they can actually establish governance in a way that they can lock a certain USB port or USB-C port on your device, or only allow a certain type of devices to be connected to it. It's a great thing that I remembered about it, because it actually comes up a lot, and it needs to be a separate control. I need to see how it maps back to the SOC 2 standard, but I'll definitely add it. But this control is about the device disposal procedure. So when it actually touches the situation when the device is no longer in use, there should be two controls instead of this one. One is about device sanitization, they call it. Actually, data cleanup with some deep data cleanup on the device, where you not only delete all files and just format the disk, but you format the disk by filling it with all zeros. So whatever information previously stored on the device is no longer available for recovery. So first control here will be the data sanitization. And another actually will be about the disposal. So when the device is not in use, you need to have a well-established procedure. And when I say you, is basically all about the IT department now while we talk about it. The IT department has to have a procedure that ensures eco-friendly way and of disposing of the devices. Usually what companies do, they hire a device recycling shop to do all device recyclings for themselves. And this shop with every device recycling gives them a device disposal certificate that they can then, which is a part of the compliance part here, which they can then present to the auditor saying that, hey, we are actually meeting the requirements of this control about the device disposal procedure. We have a procedure in place. We have a vendor that does it for us. Here is the proof that we are doing it. Of course, many small companies are not doing that like at all, and the devices may stay or inside their warehouse, as a garage or whatever it is, a room, a basement. But in this case, the auditor will probably file it as an exception, and it will appear on the report. And we will talk about it more about the SOC 2 audit, the report, and things like that, because we want to work by example. But so that you know, it's important in the organization to care about those types of things. All right, so let's touch the antivirus part real quick, because what I wanted to say, and probably you know it already, I didn't know it until probably 2025, haven't dug deep into it, you know, it was not my point of interest. But you know, the antivirus software, the anti-malware software, I remember the Microsoft Defender, I remember the Microsoft anti-malware solution. I remember a number of different antivirus applications like Norton antivirus, McAfee, AVG, and even some geeky ones like Clam AV and things like that. So you can choose one of those. You can, but it's just important that you actually enforce the installation of that antivirus on the computer, and then it actually is there, and it's actually active and does the job, and you know, locks the files when it detects viruses and things like that. And most importantly, the other governance process that you must establish as an IT department is the periodic work or regular patching of the devices and application updates. So every app you install on the device has to receive regular updates. Every the operating system that you know, that works on the device has to receive security updates frequently and OS updates frequently. As soon as they are released is the best way to do it. Of course, some companies don't want to distract people because some updates require device reboot, especially Windows devices require reboot. So for that reason, the IT departments create what is called maintenance windows, and they enforce those policies, the delivering the security updates or OS updates to the device at particular dates or intervals. They even require the employees to keep the computers up and running and open at that time so that the update can come through. And all those small things that I'm just saying about, all that should go into policies. If it's not in policy, you know, nobody understands that, and it will not be followed, right? So as we come up with all those rules, I'm just giving you some overviews of what others doing, how they are doing that, but it should definitely all go into policies. And this is the reason. This is the reason why the policy exists. And the other reason for the employees to read policies and understand them is because they actually contain the rules that make sense, that are about this company. It's not just a document that you receive and just sign without even looking. It's not a bullshit. It's a real stuff. And unless the company is doing really poor job managing their own policies, which is in many cases a case, actually, the companies are not catching up with them or not managing them properly. It's another, topic that we need to discuss, but it's in the administrative. It's the administrative aspect. Getting back to antiviruses, because I don't want to talk about policies too long. I don't like those texts myself, but when it makes sense, those statements make sense. It actually, I tend to receive them differently and feel about them a little bit differently. I'm more engaged, and hope you are as well. But getting back to antiviruses, there is actually a novel type of antiviruses, which may be novel to me, not novel to you, like CrowdStrike platform, for instance. They do proactive endpoint protection versus reactive that the traditional antiviruses do. The traditional antivirus is working in a way that when there is a file that contains antivirus has already been downloaded onto the computer, and it is discovered by the antivirus, or if there's a process that actually runs on the computer, it tries to run, or it's already running, and it contains virus signatures, then the antivirus can detect it and shut it down. It's a reactive type of thing. So it actually, it's a risk management, a post-factum risk management, if you will. It starts happening when the bad thing has already happened, maybe, right? But CrowdStrike implements the endpoint protection in a way that it actually evaluates all the downloads, evaluates all the external connections, evaluates all those external boundary. It establishes the external boundary protection. You can think of it as if you draw a circle around your laptop or iPhone, it's that boundary, that circle that CrowdStrike is trying to protect. So instead of fixing or removing, quarantining the file that is that contains virus, it will not let that file in. As more I think about it, I become more convinced that probably both should work in parallel with each other. But companies at the moment tend to do either or. But I still, thinking more about it, I still think it will be a really smart way of protecting the computer or the device if both antiviruses would be active at the same time. But I understand why they're trying to offload it to the external perimeter, to the external boundary, because it's less CPU compute consuming. So the device is less loaded because things happen at the edge, not internally. And for that reason, it's less destructive. What is also cool about it, it's just cool by itself. So I didn't have the other thing to say here. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
Couldn't all of these be done by an endpoint administrator?
What do you mean by the endpoint administrator? Like the user who is using the device?
No. Like recently, I was offered a job, which was like one of the qualifications was this MD102 Microsoft Entra ID and Intune administrator, and all of the things I studied in it included these like encrypting the hard disk using BitLocker, mobile device management, and all of these things were included in it. That's why I was asking.
Great. So this is the job or the position that is it actually says that you're the endpoint administrator, right?
Yeah.
Is the name of the position. Good. You know, it's an evolution of a position that we previously knew as system admin or system administrator.
Right.
But because of so many different types of platforms and software that you now have to combine together, and you have to look for so many things right now that previously were simply overlooked, right? The new roles pop up, the new positions show, arise that require full-time job work that you are busy the whole day doing just that. The other thing I remembered related to IT department is actually a protection or the establishment of what is called a corporate network and the corporate network protection. And because we may not get back to it, I don't see the reason why we wouldn't, but it's so many aspects of GRC here and there. So I just want to make sure that we at least touch all those points during our conversations, and you can later ask me questions or tell me that we need to elaborate on those more. The network establishment or the network configuration and network protection is also in hands of the IT department. And we know that pre-COVID, for instance, companies were working mostly in the office, and it was quite common when there is an office space with, let's say, 100 devices working at the same time, or 500 devices, depending on the size of it's either a building or a room or whatever. There will be many Wi-Fi access points, right? Or the actual network jacks where you can plug your computer or the network interface of your computer into the other net ports. And there are usually there are hardware routers that route all internet requests and responses, all internet traffic from the external to the office and from the office space to the external. And then there's probably a hardware firewall, a special appliance that has a lot of rules configured on it that monitor certain ports on the devices, close the majority of the incoming or outbound or inbound connections and ports, right? Or they can also provide internet packet inspection. So when the traffic comes in, every bit of that traffic is being inspected. And there are two types of inspections. One are called stateless, the other called stateful. Stateless is just the inspection that is done against the rule. So let's say the external connection comes in from google.com to a device inside the network. So the stateless inspection would look at the device port. If it's a high port on the device, then probably this connection is not initiated by Google, but it's just a response from Google. So it will pass the firewall. If it was actually initiated by Google, then there is a question why Google would want to access our network, right? And this will not pass the inspection, and the blind or stateless inspection will actually reject that packet. So Google will not be able to connect directly into the Office network. Google, it could be hacker or whatever, right? But the stateful packet inspection is about inspecting the actual what's in that message that came in, whether it's a response to a request or it's a certain request inside our network. So it's a more intellectual, more intellectual way of inspecting packets. It's a little slower, so people will notice that when using firewalls with stateful packet inspection, but it provides better way of protection, because as it inspects the packets, all the incoming traffic packets, it can actually distinguish better between what should be allowed or what should be rejected, especially when we talk about the incoming traffic, right? So most companies who care about hacker protection a lot, they definitely leverage stateful package inspection. They actually prefer it over stateless, but in general, they work both. It's sort of a combination of both in parallel. I foresee that there will be AI-led packet inspection, or maybe it's already happening. Maybe it's some type of stateful packet inspection, like it's coming, right, as an improvement to existing procedures. And small machine learning models are actually great at it, so our protection will be better and better. Before we conclude, I mentioned that previously, pre-COVID, we had this office environment, and now most companies are all remote or partially remote. So there is also a need to protect the corporate network, which is now the whole internet, right? Across all the devices working in different locations, and even on the go. And for that reason, companies implement either mandatory VPN connectivity to the corporate office network, so they can actually monitor all traffic to and from the device, or they implement things like TwinGate, which is a new generation of VPN, actually, that works a little bit differently feature-wise, if you will. It's not a direct. It's not a software that is. Well, it is a software that is directly connected, but it in addition to just monitoring and protecting traffic, it seamlessly connects multiple networks together into a single corporate environment, which is not easily possible with the VPN. And it also has ways of enforcing certain network policies related to not only to packets or internet traffic itself, but also to the software that is being used. And it's much more intellectual overall. I just wanted to give you an overview of all that. Do you guys have any questions before we finish today's session? Maybe some type of feedback?
It's feedback, and it's that this session was much easier to understand than the sessions before, because I directly understood the whole MDM and the things that were talked about today. So it was kind of exciting for me to find out that the work that I actually learn and do has a direct impact into the GRC perspective of the company. That was fun.
So now you know from what angle you can approach your shift into GRC inside your company, right? You can say, I'm already doing that. I understand it's a part of the whole thing. So I want to grow within that track, right, if you will, to spend more and more domains over time.
Yep.
Great. Shika, do you have any questions or feedback?
No questions, but it helped me appreciate what the IT department does, so I can now see when we are onboarded, some of the things that they put in place and why they give us certain rules, don't add certain things in, and password reset when you have to, and why they send us all those phishing emails to trick us and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that type of feedback, Shika. This is actually what I'm looking for, and it's actually what excites me the most. This eye-opening experience. The GRC opens eyes a lot, and it actually explains and helps understand things that previously didn't make sense. So it helps to understand the internal a lot and to appreciate the work of others and through realizing why they're doing that. And it's actually amazing. And I'm very happy that this is this type of discipline, GRC, that can help companies do that, and people see all that. And it's what excites me the most. So this type of feedback is actually, I'll take it to my heart, because I noticed that multiple times with many of my customers and other people that I work with, that when we touch these subjects, they say, oh, it's an aha moment, like all the time. Aha, now I understand why they're doing it. Aha, now I understand why we need it. It's like the whole GRC program is all about those aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep it going. Let's keep it coming. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. I appreciate your persistence being with us and joining those sessions. And I hope to see you next Friday. And I wish everyone a wonderful weekend.
You too.
All right. Have a
Thank
good
Thank
week,
you.
guys.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.